Previously on the Quiet Riot.
The pre-code era lasted for 5 years, beginning in 1930, and dealt with difficult subject matter such as extramarital affairs, as seen in Norma Shearer's forced foray into pre-code with 1930's The Divorcee. Innuendo was more forthright, as seen in Animal Crackers and other fare by the Marx Brothers. Villains and their behaviors weren't as cut and dry as seen in Public Enemy and other gangster flicks that became popular during the era. While this couldn't last forever under the Hays Code, Hollywood had 5 years of films that depicted the truths of human life and behavior. Sometimes it was hilarious, and other times depressing. No matter the genre, pre-code Hollywood delivered.
We're doing good. We're doing great. We're doing awesome. I'm Ainsley, and this is the Quiet Riot, where we discuss, critique, analyze film, television, and media. In today's video, you may hear some banging, some windy things, some things falling on the roof. It's okay. Everything's gonna be fine. It's just a bit windy out there, but I do know that I wanted to film this. It's the weekend, and it's just a lot easier for me to do that on the weekend, so don't be alarmed, please. We will be discussing Some Like It Hot and Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, Billy Wilder, Marilyn Monroe, everything all involved. If I do forget something, please feel free to put it in the comments below if you find that it would be great to know. I am always up for more knowledge to fit into my noggin. We always need those random facts. So let's get started. It was in 1959 that Some Like It Hot was released to rave reviews from both critics and audiences alike. The film stars our beautiful Marilyn Monroe as Sugar Cane, alongside Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon as Joe and Jerry, respectively, as they will be known later on in the film, or for the majority of the film. They will be Josephine and Daphne, and I apologize if I say those interchangeably. I will try to do it in a way that it's still understandable. It's 63 years later, and Some Like It Hot still has a hold on society as being this incredibly amazing movie, and it is well deserved. The directing, the script, the acting, the entire cast, and just the music and the style and everything about it is absolutely incredible. And Billy Wilder is my favorite writer and screenwriter of all time. I absolutely love his work. My favorite movie is The Apartment, also starring Jack Lemmon, so I'm definitely biased. I hope that you find that you agree with me on this, and if you don't, I'm also willing to hear all your points in the comment section, so please feel free to comment below. It is one of the best comedies of all times, and its influence continues to this day. Of course, there are certain things that people may take from this movie and use something similar in their own scripts, in their own movies, and it's not executed as well, so it can be seen as a joke that makes fun of drag queens and transgender people and women, but I don't think that's something that really occurs in this movie. I believe that Billy Wilder and others involved in this movie really did a very good job at making this film, whether it was intentional or not in every way, but there were certain decisions that they made that helps this movie stand the test of time. So in today's video, I will share my personal perspective on this movie, as well try to answer the question, why does Some Like It Hot work, and why does it hold up so well? Written and directed by Billy Wilder, who was also responsible for several successful movies that were made prior to Some Like It Hot, including Sunset Boulevard and Double Indemnity. Some Like It Hot was released in 1959 to rave reviews from critics and audiences alike. It was both a critical and commercial success. The film is a crime comedy that follows Joe, played by Tony Curtis, and Jerry, played by Jack Lemmon, after they witness a crime similar to that of the historical Valentine's Day massacre that occurred in Chicago in the 1920s. After witnessing this crime, they then go on the run, by pretending to be women named Josephine and Daphne. They join a female band. That way they can find themselves in Florida, escaping Chicago and getting out of the grasp of the organized crime in Chicago. Along the way, they meet and are both smitten by Marilyn Monroe's character Sugar Cane, who is the singer of the band. She also gets in trouble quite a bit due to her drinking, as she has a flask inside her dress. I love the scene where they meet her character as she is taking the flask out of her stockings and going to drink it. It's just a cute little scene, and I love it, and I love the chemistry that exists between both Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis together, and their chemistry as a group, and then the chemistry they each have with Marilyn Monroe. When they arrive to Florida, Jerry, who is Daphne, ends up catching the eye of a rich, successful older man played by Joe E. Brown. His character is Osgood Fielding III. I absolutely love Joey Brown in this role. I think he's positively wonderful, and it could also be easy to see this role as just some creepy older man who's perving on this innocent woman, and the way that it's played, it's just done wonderfully. It's really difficult from a modern point of view to put into words how this movie, made in 1959 and set at a different time, does so well at taking something that could genuinely be so creepy and unnerving and genuinely making it this kind of funny and sweet thing that exists. And I feel that ties in really well at the end. The screenplay by Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond is based on a screenplay by Robert Theron and Michael Logan from the 1935 French film Fanfare of Love. That's a movie that I haven't seen, but I actually would like to see that movie and then do a comparison video alongside the film Fanfares of Love that was made in Germany in 1951 and is a German remake of the French film. Some Like It Hot was released in 1959, 9 years before the eradication of the Hays Code. And by 1959, the code was already on its way out. In the early 1950s, it was really, the film industry was competing with television. That was becoming more and more popular, especially as more people started to get television in their homes. And so they weren't making as much money at the theater. So we had more films being made that were leaning more into taboo subject. Unfortunately, fortunately for us, Some Like It Hot was not showed to the Major Motion Production Code Association was not showed to be revised and reviewed by the Hays Code, so it was released and had all the good stuff that we've come to love from the movie. It is the success of this film that is often considered one of the reasons that the code was eventually changed in 1968. The movie was filmed in California and was filmed in black and white after stock footage of both Curtis and Lemmon was shown to not be very great. The initial stock footage in color showed Curtis and Lemmon to look very grotesque. Their makeup was just didn't picture very well, so they decided to make it in black and white. Monroe wasn't a really big fan of this, but once they showed her the footage of them, she was like, okay, let's do this, and we're just very glad they didn't. I have seen some of the colorized photos, and I think these photos are more like a colorization, so they're not as bad, but I can definitely see where they made that decision. Of course, things might be a little different today, but as far as 1959, that was how they had to go about it. Ori Kelly, who is in charge of costumes for Marilyn Monroe, found clothing for Curtis and Lemmon after the stock costumes from the studio was found to fit the male leads poorly. I'm really glad they went about making sure that both Curtis and Lemmon looked really great in their makeup and costumes, or at least as great as they could. I mean, I gotta be honest with you here, like, I find Tony Curtis dressed as Josephine to be a total beautiful babe. I definitely find Jack Lemmon much more attractive as a male, but I just gotta say, like, they did a really good job finding these guys, like, really great clothes that fit them very well, and makeup that worked with them really well, wigs that worked with them really well, and I think that in itself is just a really great way of making sure that the joke isn't women, isn't, you know, people who dress as women, isn't any drag performers or trans people are not the butt of the joke in this movie, and all these little details that went into it is one of the things that does itself good. Though it was released in the 1950s, the film is set in the 1920s during the Prohibition era and the Jazz Age. This means both of these things, play a really big part in the film. From the beginning, we see the little bootleggers, the organized crime folk. They are carrying a bunch of alcohol in coffins. I love this scene. I think this scene is absolutely wonderful. And they're having a bit of a car chase with the people, the cops, the police, the popo. And they shoot into it, and so, like, the water's all coming out. They broke water. The vodka and alcohol are just all coming out, and just from the get-go, like, it sets up the story and what's gonna happen. It foreshadows some things that are gonna happen, and it just overall sets the scene and the time period very well. And I feel like that's one of the best ways to do a period piece, is to showcase both the time, using things that were genuinely happening and were affecting people all across wherever you're at. In this case, it is the US. And also just something that something that's not so stereotypical either, because there's so many aspects of the 1920s, and I feel like even though Prohibition was such a big part of it, it's not something that's really focused on a whole lot, and so you get this moment, and it's just great. I love it, love it, love it, love it a lot. And along with jazz music, we are first introduced to the guys as they are performing in a speakeasy. They are both musicians, and they want to join another band, get another gig. And this is eventually what leads them to finding out about the female band, who is in need of a saxophone player and a bass player. And that's what he plays, right? Yeah, double bass player. That leads them to that band to know what they are. So once the whole organized crime thing happens, they witness this really bad situation. They need to get the heck out of there so they don't get... they call the band. So the setup is also just wonderful. I think they did such a good job at, like, I don't know, like, I'm literally obsessed with Billy Wilder. Let me tell you that. I'm gonna make a video fully about Billy Wilder, and so I can confess even more about how much I truly love his just incredible ability to write a freaking amazing script, and his direction and how everything was done. I fully think that this is a great movie for people to watch when they want to see how things should be set up, a great beginning, showcase where you're at, what's going on in the era, how to do a great period piece. Dear Lord, what a freaking amazing film this is. Unfortunately, the behind the scenes moments of this movie weren't as wonderful as the film itself, as our poor Marilyn Monroe was dealing with some really personal struggles at the time, including an addiction to pills. This was making it very difficult for her to memorize her lines, and she would show up to set late. Unfortunately, she would often get her lines mixed up, and they would be in the wrong order, in the wrong placement, and so they would have to do upwards of 41, 47 takes, and it was just really difficult on everyone involved. And Billy Wilder has been very honest about his experience on this and how stressful and difficult it was, how he wouldn't want to go through it again. But what I do really love is that he doesn't talk down about Marilyn Monroe. He says that she did a wonderful performance. She gave a wonderful performance. And she was a great sugar cane. And I think that's a great way of being honest about your own personal experience in this situation without degrading someone. So, good on Guy. We learn from the very beginning, from the get-go, that Joe is a playboy. Jerry, not so much, but they're both dudes. And this comes into play. They dress up to escape this situation and essentially experience what it's like to walk through the world as a woman. And this is such a comedy. And it's a comedy, but just the commentary that is still existing within this movie. After learning that the film hired Barbette, a drag performer and former tightrope performer, to help Curtis and Lemmon out, I came to a little conclusion. I believe that having someone, especially a drag performer, help them get into character and with their movements, it solidified how important it was for the filmmakers to not just throw makeup and dresses at these men and say, hey, dress up as women, you're pretending to be women. It's really about these characters trying to pass as women for their own safety. It's a lot more than just this, oh, ha, 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 Joe and Jerry, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon are dressed as women, and it's a joke and it's funny. It's a lot more than that. And the care that was put into this movie and making this movie is one of the things that helps it work. It's not the one thing that makes it work, but it's something that helps it work. From the moment that the guys, along with the band, arrive in Florida, Jerry, aka Daphne, ends up catching the eye of one Osgood Felding III, played by veteran character actor Joey Brown. This is my favorite part of the movie and probably one of the most well-known parts of the movie as well, and it all leads up to that wonderful ending. We see them go up to the room and Jerry especially is the one that wants to get out of here, but Joe has found himself smitten, liking, wanting, all that jazz when it comes to sugar. So we have Jerry going down with Sugar to go to the beach. They're gonna swim, have a good old grand old time. How that works out, oh my god, there's this joke, there's this, oh freaking good, there's this moment on the beach with Daphne and Sugar Cane when she's talking about, oh, I like the way clothes hang on you, you're so flat-chested, and he's offended. The jokes are A+. Then we meet another character played by Tony Curtis. This time he is no longer Joe. He's no longer Josephine. He is Shell Jr., an heir to the Shell Oil Company. Because Tony Curtis does his best, and when I mean best, it's freaking phenomenal, impression of Cary Grant. And one of the things that makes this so great is that this was actually how Tony Curtis learned to act. He was recovering after war injuries, and he would watch movies that had Cary Grant in him, and he would end up mimicking him. And so he has his voice down pat, and that little detail of just, you know who he's pretending to be and what he's using, it's perfect because obviously this character themselves wouldn't know Cary Grant is because Cary Grant's not an actor at this point. And it's one of those details that literally just make the movie even more fun. It's just this special little Easter egg. I love Jerry finding out what Joe's doing, and he just like runs, trips, looks at him, sees him, and then him and Sugar go to run up. And of course Jerry is hoping to like he's expecting to see Josephine. Josephine's not there. At least I don't think they is until they hear some humming. And they go into the bath and you hear, like, see Tony Curtis in his wig and makeup. And she leaves and Daphne, aka Jerry, is in the doorway and you just see him get up. And this was actually the first moment that I had ever seen for this movie. It was on in a house that I was in and I saw him get up and it's just a perfect shot. And just the look on Tony Curtis's face at this moment and then the one on Jack Lemmon's face. Perfecto. So everything that kind of goes on from this moment is Jerry is really, he's not involved with Osgood, but they're close. They're getting closer. Jerry is becoming a lot more comfortable with being Daphne, and he ends up, we don't see this moment, but we do know that Osgood ended up proposing to Daphne, and Daphne wants to accept it. And there's a part where he's like, but you're a man, and it's like, so? Like, it's just kind of, there's a lot of references that are very gay, that are very homosexual in nature, very LGBTQIA+, just not for the straights. So the rest of the movie is really them just like running from the bad guys that show up. It's absolutely wonderful. You have just moments, Joe, Josephine, and our little Shell Jr. boy trying to make things work with Sugar, and you're just kind of wondering, how is this gonna work? And you do, I mean, Joe is not really like seen as a super good guy at this moment, but it is a comedy. It's a comedy. That kind of comes full circle at the end as well. Let's talk about the end of this movie. The most important part, the creme de la creme, the cherry on top of this movie. They're in a boat. Sugar comes, so they're all four together. You got your Joey Brown, wonderful little Osgood the third, and you have Jerry, aka Daphne, played by Jack Lemmon. You have Joe, Josephine, played by Tony Curtis, and then you have Sugar Cane. Sugar comes, and he's like, I'm a saxophone player, and she's like, it's, it's fine, it's good. She's made her mistake, she's going to make them again. But the best part, the good stuff is Jerry, played just beautifully by Jack Lemmon, saying all of these things to try to get Osgood not to want to marry him. And then he's like, I'm a man, and he takes off his wig. The most perfect moment, the most perfect delivery. Well, nobody's perfect. And then just Jack Lemmon just being like, it's just the greatest way to end the scene. One of the best parts about that whole ending was that was originally just a placeholder. They were trying to find a much better way to button it to end it all, and they couldn't find it. So they couldn't find it, so they left it in the movie. And I'm so glad that that's what's left, because there's so much commentary that can just be put around that ending. I feel like that's such a thing too. Like, if you were a straight woman or bisexual woman, pansexual, whatever, or you're just somebody who likes men, and it's like that, I mean, he's a man, but nobody's perfect. It's just this such great, just relatable just moment of any time, and I literally love this movie. It's not my favorite movie. It's not my favorite movie by Billy Wilder, but it's one of my top movies for sure. It's in the top 10. Is it? It's in the top 10, 100%. In conclusion, I have to say that what genuinely makes Some Like It Hot work so well and why it holds up to this day is the fact that nobody, whether it be a woman or a trans person, any member of the LGBT community, anybody who's queer, anybody who's not these two characters are not the butt of the joke. They're not being made fun of. It is simply about these two men, and they're the butt of the joke, but they're also kind of put in this situation in which they're escaping people who want them dead. And so it's just handled very well, and it could have been handled a lot worse. I also like that it's not handled with kid gloves either, and that's something that also makes it hold up very well. It's not like it was made in 1940 and they're having to appease to this incredibly, racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic person who had these so-called Catholic values, Christian values. This was people making a movie that they really wanted to make and enjoyed, and the fact that it wasn't made to appease some rating system really helps it be what it was supposed to be. And there's also these little surprises and things that happened in the course of making this movie that add to the strengths in the film. Billy Wilder and his team on this movie are what make this movie so great. And there are so many things that could have went a different way that would make this movie not as good. While this movie would generally be good had it not been from that great ending or some of the choices that were made along the way, I do think it was a mix of choices made by the director Billy Wilder, the screenwriting, the things that they took or took out, as well as just their ambition, the incredible performances by all of the actors, and the fact that this movie, while handled with care, was again not handled with kid gloves. The audience has been trusted. And it is true to me when you watch this film and you can see how many people really loved it back then and that it's still loved today, that it's truly a movie that can be loved by so many people. It's not overtly meant to either appease or appeal to one particular audience. It was somebody putting a lot of love and care into a movie, as well as a lot of respect for the people, the audience, and the cast and crew as a whole. And when you're really trying to respect human nature, human beings, that helps you out a whole lot. Let's just salute Billy Wilder on his being an incredible writer, filmmaker, all-around person. He was great. All of the performances were amazing, and if you've made it this far through my video, you're freaking amazing. I love you. I love this for us, for me. Thank you. Give it a like if you feel so inclined. Subscribe and ring that bell to be notified every single time I post. If you want to stick around, I'd love to have you. Tell me what you love about this movie in the comments below. Tell me if you've seen it. Have you not seen this movie? Please rectify that now. And if you like another movie by Billy Wilder, let me know in the comments below. What's your favorite old movie? What's a movie that you think you really like as much as I love this movie? Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I hope you decide to stick around, and if you feel like sharing it, do that too. I have more movies planned coming out that are based on particular movies, particular people, as well as continuing my talks on censorship in both film and television, as well as the media as a whole. So let's do this. Let's grow this channel. You're great. I'm great. We're great. Bye.